So let me just share a little bit about this. Okay. So Cheryl Townsley, not only is she our friend, and not only is she a part of the team, but she is a naturopath and a wisdom coach. She has worked with tens of thousands, that's a big number, of clients from around the world, has appeared on over 1,000 television and media outlets. Wow, right? Written 17 books, known for her practical results driven approach to health. It's very unique. I love it. And I'm not going to tell anymore. I'm not going to tell anymore because she has a unique story. I love it. And I love the transparency of how things have transpired for her to be here. So, Cheryl, I'm going to keep letting people into this amazing event, and I'm going to turn this over to you. And thank you. We have Mary, who is translating for us tonight over in the interpretation room.
Well, thank you, Rick and Elaine. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to jump right in. You know, when you work with tens of thousands of clients and you take no insurance, the reason they come back is they get results. And then in that process, I've tested thousands of products to find what really works so you can get those results. We also did no marketing because when something works, people tell people and they tell people. Well, about 2015, we really added to all that we've been doing, and I've been in this arena about 35 years. But in 2015, we really started diving into neurology. And that's where I had probably the biggest epiphany of my career in realizing that our brain runs every aspect of our health, not our logic, but this part of the brain back here, the brainstem cerebellum, which does all kinds of things, but it runs everything, all your performance. And when I really got that in 2015, it radically changed my business and my practice and how we worked with people. Well, then everything was going along well. I'm good at what I do. We had great results. And then 2020 hit. And for many of you, even though you knew it was a big deal, most people have no clue what 2020 did to people around the world. As a practitioner, what I began to see is that what worked before, what was easy before, it wasn't working. Why? Because when this part of the brain, not our logic, looks at the world and goes, it's unpredictable, it's unfamiliar, it's unsafe, it's unknown, then it starts shutting things down and it starts impacting all kinds of brain pathways. That's a really big deal. And as I saw that and health challenges became more complicated, more difficult for all the things going on at that time, it was like, what am I going to do? Because what worked before was not enough. And I started looking. We did a lot with cleanses. We did things with parasites. We did things with toxicity and EMF. We were doing all the things that I was learning to do, and it simply wasn't enough. There's a key in here because so many times when we're looking for something, we don't know what it is we're looking for. Well, 2024, somebody sent us, that would be Rick and Elaine, some of this stuff. It went on a shelf, did nothing with it. I didn't understand it. I thought it was hokey. I'd tested a lot of patches, seen a lot of mixed results, so I just wasn't interested. I was looking for what would help support the brain. Pretty interesting story, isn't it? Well, then in August, 14 months later, Forrest suggested I listen to a video by Dr. Anna Toker. And if you have never heard this brilliant woman, do yourself a favor and go listen to her. As a colorectal surgeon, robotics, she's brilliant. She's very good at what she does. She started talking about the brain, neurology, the gut, the vagus nerve, which became all the talk in 2020, and we've been working with it for 25 years. She was talking all of my language, and she said, these little patches, when applied to the skin, go into the nervous system and put it into homeostasis balance. I had the second biggest epiphany I've ever had because I knew the brain ran everything. And it was like, you can put brain pathways into balance instantly. That's like huge. And so then it was like, let's go to work and start working with this, working with it on ourselves, with our clients, the results since August have transformed because now the very thing I was looking for that was sitting on the shelf for 14 months, the health accelerator I had been looking for is a health accelerator of the decade when you can support the brain and put brain pathways into balance. So without further ado, I want you to know we are not going to talk about diseases or um, disorders or syndromes, because that's not how your body talks. It's not how your brain talks. Your brain and your body talk in symptoms. So when you start understanding that a specific patch works on, say, an umbrella, but there's all kinds of symptoms on that pathway. And as you begin to discover what each one does, you're going to be so excited because you don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to do what I've done for 35 years. You just get to do what the brain loves to do, which is play, notice, discover. So we're not going to practice medicine. We're going to practice listening. So we're going to start with one of my very favorite patches, which is defend. Now, most of the time people think that's just immune system. Yeah, that's great. However, it works on the gut, and the gut is connected to the brain via the vagus nerve. And your gut is what really provides about 90% of your immune system. So it's going to help with symptoms like allergies, congestion. It's going to improve the quality of your blood. And when you improve the quality of your blood, you improve the quality of your lymph so that it means your body can begin to detox where it may not have been able to do that, especially since 2020. It helps with faster recovery. It helps with, this came from Dr. Toker, avoiding infections after surgery. That's a big deal. The other thing that I have found in testing clients, people who have malabsorption issues, that's a big word for saying they can be taking all the right things, but it doesn't absorb. When I have put them on Defend and go back and test a month later, absorption is working. That's pretty amazing. Better circulation. It's great when you're traveling because think about your circulation, think about your lymph, think about things getting puffy. It's great when you're in environments with other people like airports, when you're in hotels, when you're around sick people, when you're traveling, wherever it is, it's just great. I think it partners incredibly well with Lumi, which is for the skin. We'll get to that in a little bit. This truly is, as a practitioner and as a person, my number one. The next one that so many people go to is Liberty. Liberty, we often think of as balance. Balance is run by the brain, and we've done many things in our practice for the last 10, 11 years to improve balance. But when all you have to do is put on a Liberty patch and you watch somebody go from weaving in their walking to a normal gait, that's shocking. That's an accelerator like I didn't even think was possible. But in addition to those basic things, it's working on the vestibular system. So it's going to help where you have maybe dizziness or you don't do so well in a car. It helps with energy. It helps to reduce inflammation. Inflammation is at the root of almost every single disease. It's incredible for not only the vagus nerve, which is closest to the body right here. It's the only nerve that goes into the brain, into the gut, transfers right through our neck. So when you have a tight neck, you have tight shoulders, your breathing is tight, your digestion is off, Liberty is your very best friend. It helps with getting the colon to be able to move. So things like constipation can all of a sudden disappear and you're like, well, but I didn't take anything. No, you put a brain pathway into balance. It's great, according to Dr. Toker, for post-surgery results, keeping people from falling out of bed. If you realize that the number one cause of death over 60 is, especially for women, is falling. So if you can avoid a fall, that could change your entire life and life expectancy. The test that's shown for the balance test is what doctors use to look at for life expectancy. So that one's awesome. Okay, are you learning something? Hopefully you are. Let's move on to the next one, which is, it should be is Boost. I had this in order, but let's make sure. Okay. Boost, we've got it right here. Okay, Boost. Boost is for energy. Do you know how many of our kids are doing energy drinks and getting hyped up on stimulants and sugar? And it does this and then it does this and all kinds of jitters. This is a really clean way to be able to get nice, steady energy. But when you have energy, what it means is you're not going to be totally exhausted all day long, especially in that 1 to 3 time frame in the afternoon. And when you have poor energy, you tend to have overwhelm. Overwhelm and decision overwhelm became common starting in 2020. So being able to have a steady energy, because the biggest user of energy in your body is your brain. And then it's your eyes. And what changed during 2020? We went into Zoom calls. So we had tired eyes, tired brains, things that we weren't used to experiencing. And children are on screens constantly. So Boost is extraordinarily important because you're getting energy to the very place that's using it the fastest. That one also can partner really well with REM, which we'll get to in a little bit, with sleep. The next one, well, it's the next one. Okay, so REM. REM is for sleep. Sleep is gold. One of the things I started seeing with clients in 2020 is that even though they were tired, they couldn't sleep. Have you ever related to that? You're sitting there exhausted and you can't sleep. What is my problem? What is my problem? Well, our sleep time, technically from 11 at night till 7 in the morning, is when short-term memory is refreshed and it's where the body is detoxifying. And if you can't get into good sleep, it's shortchanging your lifespan. In fact, not only do about 60% of our population not sleep well, what's interesting is if you have 3 years or more of poor sleep, 2020 is more than 3 years ago, it can lower your life expectancy by 10 years. So poor sleep is gold in this season. It's also can be helpful with things that happen at night, like hot flashes, being too warm, tossing and turning. Poor sleep can impact a lot of those little diseases that none of us want to have. So, wouldn't it make sense to just put on a REM patch and enjoy getting good sleep? REM will also help calm that vagus nerve. You're going to find that the vagus nerve is supported by so many of the patches. But here's one thing I'm going to say about REM. I've tested clients, they test well for it. They go home and they put it on and they come back and they have a few, not a lot, but I want to share this because it can be a real issue and I want to explain it. They said, Cheryl, I had the worst night of sleep ever. And so it didn't take me long because I'm a troubleshooter to discover that if I asked one question, we would know why they had that response. So I simply looked at them and said, have you ever had trauma or abuse at night? 100% responded either with tears or, and I said, well, the first thing you could do is try peace with REM. And for many people, that took care of it. See, it wasn't that we didn't put the brain pathway into balance. The brain went, it's not safe to have that outcome of good sleep because if I'm not hyper vigilant, something might happen to me. So it's not that REM didn't work. It simply revealed an issue. And many of those people have gone on to work with other people with therapy to get past the trauma. For quite a few of those people, just adding peace to support the nervous system. Isn't that exciting? See, that's not a contraindication. That's not something bad. That's a discovery. Play, notice, discover. And for virtually everybody else, a good night's sleep, that's worth its weight in gold. Okay, what are we going to do after REM? Focus. Focus, focus, focus. This one, Forrest said, Cheryl, you may not wear this. We do not need you having any more focus. But and Forrest, I said, this is one you can wear because he can have squirrels and rabbits and squirrels and rabbits and then not even remember what he was going to do. About 3 or 4 weeks on this, and it changed my husband forever. His focus has gone like this. So when you think about focus, That's mental clarity. It's remembering what you started out to do and then didn't get derailed. It's excellent, excellent for that overwhelm issue, overwhelm in making decisions, like what to pack, what not to pack. Watching Forrest pack is like, it's just, it has changed with focus. It helps with follow through because you're right on track. This one is excellent for children, for students, for business partners that might need a little bit of focus. And this is just a very excellent accelerator to be able to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish without it feeling like it's hard. The one thing we want to avoid since 2020 is hard, because anytime you feel like it's hard, your brain starts shutting things down. So when it's easy and you can play, notice, discover, and have some amazing results. We're not in the world of hard. We're in supporting this, being able to get up here where all of our creativity, our logic, our decision making, our learning, our fun, that's pretty exciting. Okay, next is victory. Victory is outstanding for those people who really want athletic excellence. This is the one that Forrest actually tried when it was still on the shelf, and I still thought it was hokey. And he does a lot with weights and Indian clubs. And when he would put on the victory patch, he instantly could lift 30% more. So that got his attention. I still thought they were hokey until I listened to Dr. Toker and got the epiphany that I had. But in addition to being able to do more, virtually every athlete has a dominant side and a weak side. And victory helps bring those into balance, which immediately improves performance because the body will only let you do what the weakest side of your body can do. So when you're like this, you've already lost a whole lot of potential. When you bring it into balance, your potential increases. It will help with coordination. It'll help with stamina. It'll help with recovery. It's great for supporting this part of the brain, everything I've been talking about. It helps in breaking plateaus. It helps with speed and strength and stamina. And that was part of our very first epiphany, is that when it comes to sports, all of your performance, all of that speed, all of that strength happens here, not in the muscles. You might have perfect muscles, but if the brain is dysfunctional in that area, you cannot present that performance. So victory is great for athletes. How about joy? One of the things that I started observing, obviously I observed a lot of things in 2020, is that there were just a lot of people that were just in fear. And then there was a lot of death. There were people that couldn't be with their family. They were in lockdown. There was a lot that happened to emotions. And when we lose that sense of zeal for life, that's that's just hard to replace. But joy has given that to so many people that I've talked to. It helps with that sense of hopelessness. It's that lack of emotional resilience. Another thing that was stolen in 2020. You know, it used to be you'd have something happen and you'd have a little bit of a crash, you'd recover. 2020, it was like there was this. The resilience just wasn't there. In fact, this is a quote that I gave several clients that was helpful. It's that life feels heavier, harder, and more exhausting than it should. You remember when things felt different. You remember when you felt lighter and more like you. That version of yourself isn't gone, it's disconnected. And when you can reconnect to it, the lights turn on. The lights turn on, and that can make a difference for you and your family and your friends. Okay, how about Ignite? Ignite, people think, that's just for weight loss. Well, what it's really working on is your metabolism. Now, that's kind of a big word, but what it means is that when you eat, the ability to digest it and convert that food into energy and move it throughout the body so it can be used everywhere it's needed, that's a really big process. So it's actually can be even more inclusive than just weight loss. Think about things like maybe you've seen loss of muscle mass as you age. Well, If you don't have good metabolism of your protein, that could impact how your muscles are forming or not forming. It can also, it's burning 500 calories a day. I shared that with one of our clients, and she went and looked up all the things that it took to burn 500 calories. And she said, Cheryl, those are a lot of work. I said, yeah, they're good for you. She said, but I think putting on a patch to burn 500 calories, that's a pretty big deal. When you have low metabolism, what you might experience is you have not only weight gain, but the weight gain is in this middle area, which is cortisol, which is not a good thing. But you may feel cold. You may feel like you're dry. You may have hair loss, sugar cravings, digestive issues like bloating. So those things are all poor metabolism, and may or may not be your issue, but metabolism may be a pathway that's out of balance. So that's Ignite. Okay, let's move on to what's next. Kick it, kick it, kick it. We hear that that's for addictions, but do you know what addictions are? Addictions are where we go when we don't feel safe or comfortable. So whether it's drugs or sex or alcohol or shopping or whatever it is, the issue is you're not feeling safe. And that went like this during 2020. And so this can be very helpful for those kinds of issues. But I have had numerous people that came back and said, I had no idea how much sabotaged myself, how much my thoughts looped over the same things day after day after day after day, and how hard I was on myself. When they added Kick It, they were like, and one client I talked to, I said, you were a mess. I didn't know how I was going to help you. And she did Kick It. And when the next conversation we had, I said, you're a different person. She said, I know I am. 2020 almost took me out. And I didn't realize how I'd been under the strain of that self-sabotage. So if you struggle with that, that might be a brain pathway you want to play notice discover. And then we've got Rocket. And we've got about three others, but Rocket most of the time is connected with low libido. But knowing about low libido and all that that implies with hormones, it has a huge role to play in circulation. How effectively oxygen and blood flow is getting not only to body parts, but to the brain. So when you work with Rocket, you can find there's some really specific things that you might notice a difference in. There might be, because when there's poor circulation, there's cold feet. You might notice you have poor stamina, you don't have a lot of endurance, brain fog, which is different than brain fatigue. It's just foggy because there's not enough oxygen getting to the brain. That poor circulation, there's different ways you can test that, but the easiest way is to know if you have cold feet, you don't have good circulation in your body. On the other end, because this is about temperature, I've had numerous women who were dealing with hot flashes to the tune of, I had one woman who was dealing with them. She was having to change her pajamas and sheets 3 times a night. I don't even know how you get any sleep. Well, she didn't. And so when she added Rocket, it took care of it. Another woman who was getting up at night a couple of times to go to the bathroom, first night, didn't have to get up to go to the bathroom. That means you're going to sleep better. Sleep is gold. That's great for the brain. It can help with mood swings. It helps with libido. That's a pretty good deal. Now, I've got notes for these other three. I don't know where they went to, but that's okay because I'm focused and we're just going to knock them out of the park. Peace. Peace is all about having your nervous system feel safe. See, when 2020 happened, none of our world was safe. The lockdown, everything that was happening during that time, people began to feel unsafe. The world's unpredictable, it's unknown, and we began to live in a cortisol flush 24/7. And that impacts every area of your body. Peace is one of the things that can, because remember, when you put on a patch, you put a brain pathway into balance, and all of a sudden, you're not in this hamster loop of unsafe, 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 unsafe. You turn on a brain pathway, it goes, Well, isn't that exciting? And when you're able to put that into place, the vagus nerve, your breathing, your mental clarity all begins to shift. Why? Because the brain went, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. That one has helped so many people. It's been great for people who've had the issues with sleep at night. I've seen this be great with children because one of the things that was so sad to see during 2020 and those first several years, kids no longer in school, they had to wear masks, all the things that hit. And that's not what children were meant to do. They were meant to play, notice, discover, go experiment with things, and their world crashed. And for many of them, it impacted school, it impacted being able to see their friends, go outside and play. And so this is an excellent one for children. Very, very helpful. Lumi is really one of my all-time favorites because Lumi supports your skin. If you actually understand your body, your skin is kind of like a donut. It's everything on the outside and then everything on the inside. So what's really interesting is the women, when they go do all kinds of things to get their face absolutely beautiful, they have no idea how they're falling apart on the inside because skin is everything. And Lumi, that was one of the ones that Dr. Toker talked about, is just phenomenal. I come from a family of women that look like they're 90 when they're 30. And Forrest was the opposite. And that was when I started wearing, and the difference is huge because as you wear it and you're typically monitoring your face, it's not just that the wrinkles here are going away, but all kinds of things are happening throughout your whole body because your skin is part of what impacts all kinds of things in your body. It has an impact on your mitochondria, which is your ability to have energy. It works on cell integrity inside your body. So when you're working on your skin, you're not just working here, you're working throughout the entire body because everything is rooted in the skin. That's what supports your immune system. That's what supports integrity in the body because everything internal has skin connections too. That's another one of my favorites. I haven't yet worn all of them at the same time, but I've been known to wear quite a few. Um, the last one, because I don't think I talked about freedom yet. Freedom. Freedom. What would happen if you were free to actually respond effectively? You see, when we go into shock or overwhelm or panic or nothing works for me, I don't know what to do, then what happens is we start operating in a whole lot of pain. In fact, pain is what the brain uses to say unsafe, 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 unsafe. And so when you're able to take something from unsafe and put it into homeostasis and safety, things you didn't think would ever be available to you now start functioning. It's like you didn't know that you could get down on the floor and get back up. A lot of people can't do that. Now, there could be a pain issue, but the pain is coming from the brain saying unsafe, unsafe, unsafe. When you turn off that unsafe signal, you start changing your movement, you start changing the quality of your movement, and you start seeing results you didn't know were possible. I could sit here for probably the next, I don't know how many hours, and share with you the stories of what I've seen with people, many people I've worked with for maybe 5, 10, 15 years, and I watched their health take this huge dive in 2020. And it's like, the answer wasn't more supplements. Do I use supplements? Sure. But if a brain pathway is out of balance, it's not about another supplement. It's about what can we do to put a brain pathway into balance, which means you leave this part of the brain, which is your panic mode, and thinking nothing can ever work because you're in fight, flight, or fear, which is okay in the moment, but when that becomes the norm, which it did in 2020, symptoms go through the roof, and you can't take enough drugs or enough pills to calm what feels like fight, flight, or fright. But when, because this is the beauty of the patches, if you hear nothing more than what I'm going to say right now, when you put a brain pathway into balance, and I've just shared what some of that looks like with each one of the patches, when that brain pathway goes into balance, then this part of the brainstem cerebellum says, she's okay, send her up here. Up here is your frontal lobe, and that's where you get to play, you get to notice, you get to discover, you get to think, you get to create, you get to excel at everything you were created to do and be. That's life changing. And do you know how fast it happens? That fast. Because you flip the switch on, brain goes up here. It's amazing. It's amazing. And when I first started seeing it, it was like, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. I've done a lot of work with neurology. This is huge. And at that point in time, what I knew that I knew that I knew that I knew was we were able to change people's lives, their sense of hope, to get results they didn't think were possible. And the stories that come in, and remember, I've worked with tens of thousands of clients from around the world. I've worked with great supplements. I still work with supplements. I still recommend eating well and exercising and moving. But when you can put a brain pathway into balance, you change your life. That's a gift. That's a gift you can give to yourself, a gift you can give to your family, to children, to friends. And not only is it a gift, it becomes fun because you begin to discover what you thought was lost, especially back in 2020 and those years. You start to discover, wow, the brain can restore and refresh and renew. And that's a gift you never want to hold back and sharing with other people. I am so excited. All that I've had the privilege to learn in 35 years, and the thousands of people I've had a chance to work with and see get better, the the shock that happened in 2020 and what I saw happen to people that I didn't think could get better because it was devastating. It was devastating to the nervous system, the nervous system. And then Rick and Elaine sent us these. They sat on the shelf. They sat on the shelf for 14 months because I had no epiphany. I hadn't gotten the realization that when you change a brain pathway, you change your life. You change your focus, you change your potential, and you change the number of lives you can go impact. As a practitioner, as a naturopath, my my finest gift is to give someone back their life. When I thought I had maybe lost that in 2020 because it got too hard, it was getting too expensive, we weren't getting the results. I ignored what somebody offered me because I didn't have any frame of reference to put it in. But when I listened to Dr. Toker and I realized what that frame of reference was, is what I'd been studying for 10 years with the nervous system. I realized I'd been given a gift that I can share with other people, and they don't have to be the doctor. They don't have to have all the years of study that I've had. They don't have to have worked with tens of thousands of clients. They just to get to put a patch on and go play, notice, and discover. That, my friend, is a gift. And you can't hold it back because you don't know, not only in your life, but who else you can help. So I bless you to go play, go notice, discover, share with people what you've learned tonight, because you just don't know. You may be the person that changes another person's life forever. Thank you, Elaine.